Me yet again, and I'm really grateful for that. So you provided a service to me. You provided some work for a recent graduate. That's huge. And then I am grateful to be able to share some of the things I learned. I heard a lot, and I think I have some great, maybe suggestions or also just encouragements for you. So let's get this started. As I've mentioned in the past, I think from the pulpit, I have assumed that God has been at work in your church. That is my fundamental assumption. And so then I've assumed that my job has been to listen to what God is doing here. And so I have really trusted that as I ask you, what's going well, what's happening here, that as you start telling me about what you see from your vantage point, I'll be able to put together a picture of the spiritual life of this place. And then be able to kind of suss out, what are the really concrete needs that you have? What are the things that are going really well that you should keep doing? And where might God be leading you in, the next chapter of your lives together? So my plan of attack has been to basically just listen really broadly and deeply. I wanted to get a great cross-section of people, or kind of a sampling of people. So I wanted, not necessarily to meet with everybody, because I knew that wouldn't be possible in the amount of time I had, but I wanted to meet with people of different ages, and different family configurations, and different interests, and different, length of tenure at the church. And I wanted to get as much, breadth as I could possible in order to get a sense of what life was like here at First Pres. And I knew that then I would have to be tracking what I was hearing and processing and analyzing it somehow. So I ended up meeting with 46 different people in the last 7 weeks. The youngest person was 16 and the oldest was 90. And I met with people who had children, who didn't have children, who were married, who were not married. So I really tried, like I said, to get a nice broad sampling. And I asked the same questions every time. So when I sat with you, you may have noticed, these questions might look familiar. I wanted to hear, first of all, what is the current state of this place? What are you involved in? What do you see from where you are? Second, I wanted to hear what was going well. Third, then I wanted you to tell me what some of the needs that you might identify from your position might be. Fourth, I wanted to hear what kind of hopes you might have for the future. And then finally, I wondered if you had any questions that I should follow up on. And so I then dropped these all into a huge spreadsheet. And so either, you might have seen me writing things down when I was talking to you or typing into my computer. And the reason I did that is that I wanted to then be able to really track what comments were talking about current state, what comments were talking about what was going well, what comments were talking about visions and hopes, etc. So I was able to color code them in my spreadsheet to look something like this. So this is a little snapshot of my spreadsheet. Needs, for example, I color coded as orange. And so then when it came time to process, I could sort for all the orange comments and then be able to see, once I was looking at all the needs, what kinds of themes are emerging here? What patterns do I see? Are people repeating certain questions or certain needs or desires? Yes, is the answer. There are a lot of themes. I want to show those in just a moment. So then I put everything, when it kind of came time to process, about midway through and toward the end, I put everything up on big pieces of flip chart paper. And I started making big tallies. So I know it's probably faint from where you are, but there's like 12 tallies over here, about 15 over there. And I did that because I wanted to get it out of the spreadsheet and somewhere where I could more easily see what kinds of patterns were emerging. And I also did this in order that midway through I could meet with session and ask for their feedback. So on June 17th, I met with the session and I brought those 3 pieces of flip chart paper. What I ended up doing was taking the 3 themes, what's going well, what needs do you see, and what visions and hopes do you have? And I asked the session to weigh in on the things I was hearing. The current state comments ended up being more kind of for my own edification. And then the questions were pretty concrete things that I just needed to follow up on. So that wasn't stuff that I needed feedback on as much. But I wanted the session to tell me, okay, here are some of the themes I'm hearing about things that are going well. Here are some of the themes I've heard about things that are needs. And here's some of the visions and hopes I'm hearing. And I gave them each a pen, and I said, okay, you have 2 votes. You get to look at each one of these lists and then affirm 2 things that you think really need to be emphasized. And then I asked them if I was missing anything. And that was important for me to do because A, I wanted to just do a gut check. I mean, Griff and I have been talking a lot, but I wanted to get the leaders also to tell me if I was missing anything or if my instincts were way off base. And because we're, good Presbyterians, part of your decision making does have to do with, making sure the elders are on board, along with the things I'm hearing from the congregation, along with what the pastor is saying. So that was an important part of the process. And then on July 5th, I gave sort of a rough draft of this presentation. So you can have some confidence that I haven't just been thinking in a bubble by myself or a vacuum by myself, but have asked for some feedback from your leaders. So what did I hear? What I've done today is bucketed things into two big categories. Things that are going well and needs. And I ended up folding your visions and hopes for the future into the needs category, just for kind of ease of presentation. And what you'll see in just a moment are two big lists that are organized by themes, and then organized top to bottom, with the things at the top being the things that were most repeated and commented on, down on the list. I will say that even if something at the bottom of the list was commented on less frequently, the sheer fact that it made it onto the list means that it was important enough that it kind of floated through the 500 comments I had on my spreadsheet and made it to these smaller lists. So that's what I'm going to share in just a bit. But I wanted to just pause. I realized at the session that I kind of opened up the fire hose and just all this information. So is there anything, I've learned my lesson and I want to check in. Is there anything at this point that needs any clarification or you doing okay? You tracking? Also, please feel free to get up and get juice if you need to stay awake during this. I won't be offended if you're moving around. So what is going well? This is a fun slide. I really want you to hear that a lot of things have been going well in your church. And I want you to hear that because I know it's been a time of transition for you. And I know it's been a time of grief. And this is a slide that indicates that A, God has been faithful to you in continuing some beautiful things, in really helping people step up to the plate. And then B, y'all have really done amazing work, even in a time of a lot of change. So I want this to be something that you remember, that I noticed a lot of things that were going well. I mentioned that there were about 500 comments in my final spreadsheet. 1 out of every 7 of those comments was a comment about something that was going well. That's amazing. So that really stuck out to me. So I'm going to commit a kind of classic PowerPoint error and go ahead and read to you some of the things that are already on the list. I apologize, that's a little dull, but I want to just highlight a few things. You told me that pastoral care and pastoral teaching was going well here. And I'm not doing this just to butter up Griff. But you told me that was...
I told him to believe that.
Yeah, he told me that. I was like, should I put it a little farther down? But 17 comments about things that were going well had to do with pastoral care and teaching. You've had amazing stability with Sandy Bowers in the Beacons, providing some continuity and stability there. And then Shasta's relational legacy is still bearing so much fruit in your congregation and is a source of enormous gratitude for people. I heard a lot about those top 3 things. And you can read some of the rest. I mean, amazing volunteers, growth in young families, even during this transition time. You love member-led music. I heard a lot about that. And for some, this is a place of a lot of connectedness. We'll note in the next slide that for others, there's need for more connection, but for some of you, this is a place where you feel like you're among your family, and you feel really deeply connected here. So, needs. I will say that, as many comments as I heard about things that were going well, it's the needs where there started to really be some repetition and some hot spots that I could identify. There were 49 comments about number 1. So that's about 10% of the comments had to do with there's this awareness that you have a bunch of children right now, and that they need some attention. And you've paid great attention to them in the past, and there's the awareness of need for continued ministry to your children. So, I won't read everything to you. You can read it yourselves. But there's this awareness, I think, that, for example, you have 3rd to 5th graders that have some unique needs because they're maturing and not quite deacons, but they also are beginning to ask some really great questions about, who is Jesus? And like, why does it matter if I go to church? So they have some unique needs. So out of this, I would say there was a lot of awareness that a point person is needed basically as quickly as possible to help make sure that the kids are getting where they need to go and that there's some organization in their programming. You've had incredible volunteers that have really kept things afloat in the last year. And yeah, there's some awareness that an official person would be really, really, really helpful. Second, this one really surprised me. I came in expecting to hear a lot about children and youth, and I was amazed that there were 34 comments from you about this desire for more adult formation. And by that I mean, some people describe this in like, we want small groups, we want ways of connecting with one another, we want ways of growing together. I heard a lot about this desire to have more kind of intimate spiritual friendships with other people in the congregation. And I also heard about this desire to really keep growing your faith as adults. So I flagged that. That really stood out to me because I wasn't sort of looking forward or expecting to hear it coming in. Third, y'all still want to see a great youth program in your church. And Sandy Bowers has been providing this really great interim coverage, but there's awareness that she needs some support in what she does because she's just been a champion and has totally set up the plate. So I would say I phrase this as a slightly less ASAP need, simply because Sandy has been providing some great stability in the interim, but she'll need some support, and you for sure want to be thinking about who that person will be that will really take care of the youth in the long term. Fourth, I heard a lot about desire for congregational care. You have an elder of congregational care who does a great job. You have Griff, who provides pastoral care and visitation. And then all of you, in your own way, individually do things that, help make sure that people feel connected and cared for here. But I heard quite a bit about a desire for more of a system in place. And I'll talk about that in a moment when I cover recommendations. But there were people that wanted to make sure that when there were visitors and they signed their name in the attendance pad, that we knew that there was someone on point who would follow visitors. Others really wanted me to hear that it was important that folks at Ridgecrest were visited on a regular basis and with some kind of systematic fashion. And then finally, there was expression of need for updates to the building with really significant attention to increased accessibility. This is toward the bottom of the list. There were not as many comments about this, but I would just highlight that as a place of worship, you want to make sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go to worship the Lord. So even though there were not as many comments, I would say just one comment about that. If there's one member who's really struggling to worship God in your midst, then it's worth paying attention to. And there was more than one comment. There were about 5 or 6. So those are the needs I heard. Now, recommendations. You may have noticed in your bulletin today, or you may have noticed on the bulletin board in the hallway, that Session has approved that First Presbyterian begin looking for an interim children's coordinator in the immediate future. This was a recommendation that came out of my listening and also my discussions with Griff and with the personnel committee. Like I said, there's just needs that are presenting themselves right now. For example, when I took over coordinating Summer Spark, it's just a little fiddly thing, right? Just one piece of the puzzle. But it took me, between 1 to 3 hours each week. At the beginning, it took me 3 hours as I was kind of working up the documentation to make sure that teachers knew what process they could follow, what a schedule might look like. And then, it looked like finding volunteers, following up with volunteers, making sure they had what they needed, and then going downstairs, making sure the videos were rewound, making sure there were videos, making sure there were coloring sheets, copying coloring sheets. So that's just one piece of the puzzle, and that's Summer Spark, and then you're going to launch Fall Spark, and then you'll have midweek Faith Friends, and then you've got 3rd to 5th graders who are in Get Ready, Get Set Worship hanging out. So there's just a lot of pieces of that ministry puzzle. And so I think y'all need more time to make the best hire possible. And this kind of stopgap measure will help you have time to make sure that you hire the person that God is preparing for you. and also make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. If that makes you a little bit anxious, if you're thinking, okay, well, what can we be doing? Like, how can I be helping and contributing and making sure that we're moving in the right direction? I would say volunteer. You can be a Spark teacher in the fall. You can help with midweek faith friends by just being someone that is a hand on deck who gets the kids where they need to go or provides a snack. You can ask this interim person how you can help. So this is my set of recommendations for children's ministry, recognizing that I think is really where the most significant logistical need lies for you. My next set of recommendations has to do with your youth ministry. I think that Sandy Bowers, again, brava Sandy Bowers, she could use some support too. So I would recommend something like considering either assigning maybe one more point person to helping her, or maybe a team of a few point people that could really come alongside her in a more formal way. She's got incredible friends who have been, I know, quite a support to her. But if there were maybe one or two or three people that you as a church knew were assigned to making sure that Sandy had what she needed so that the beacons were taken care of in this interim time, I think that would be a really helpful thing for her and for this place. And I think you should be preparing for a search for a director of youth ministry. You'll see, this is like classic. Anyway, I have this asterisk in tiny print at the bottom. That you'll notice I haven't clarified yet if we're doing one director of children and youth or two separate people. One for children, one for youth. I'm going to talk about that more in a moment. But absolutely, you should be considering how you're going to hire to cover the youth ministry and make sure that that really robust ministry doesn't fall through the cracks. And then finally, you can volunteer. You can help with pumpkins or parking for autumn leaves. In the fall, the Beacons have some curriculum already in place. They're going to be listening to adults share their faith journey, and that'll be kind of the cornerstone of their learning this fall. So you can volunteer to be one of those adults, or you can help make a meal. The Beacons' parents have tended to make those meals, and while that's amazing, I'm sure they would really welcome the spouse to help. Beth is nodding up here. You can jump in and support them as they also are in a time of change, and prepare some food and see what the Beacons are up to. My next set of recommendations has to do with that set of comments I got about a need for maybe more of a system of congregational care. I know that you made a conscious choice in your history to dissolve the diaconate at some point, and I would actually encourage you to consider resurrecting it or revamping it, whatever the appropriate word is. It wouldn't have to be something all that fancy. I know that in some Southern Presbyterian churches, the deacons manage the finances. You don't need that. You have session taking care of that. But this could be a group of people, like in Acts 6, when the apostles recognized that they had their hands full trying to preach the word. This would be a group of people that could be deployed to make sure that the people who need things in your congregation are taken care of. I would say, again, it could be 4 to 6 people. It doesn't have to be a huge group of people. You could start with 3. You could see where that goes. But I think that would be a way that you could really have the confidence that there's a system in place to make sure that people are visited and that meals are made and that visitors are followed up with. This is happening, like I said, but you can sort of draw it together in a more cohesive system, and I think that would meet some of those felt needs. And you can continue reaching out to the community through things that are already in place, through Friends Feeding Friends and Yoke Fellow, and through Sandwich Saturdays that are happening in the summer. The sign-up sheet is back here, Jason's back there. There's ways that you can also be involved in your larger community. And that, too, could be a time where you're connecting with one another and making sandwiches next to someone you don't know as well, or going to Friends Feeding Friends and making sure that that is a place where you're working alongside one another and also helping your neighbors in the city. So my last recommendation, or set of recommendations, is not to forget about the adults. Adults need connection too, and like I said, I heard a lot of desire for connection with one another and growth in your faith. So, my suggestion is in the immediate future, build on what you already have, and then see how you need to expand. Throw your weight behind Wednesday night suppers. That is a perfect opportunity that's just like ripe fruit for the picking. It's there, it's happening, it's, you're not selling your soul, it's 8 weeks, I think, something like that. That could be a time where you really invest in having the kinds of conversations with people about God, about your lives, that could help you, I think, grow closer to the Lord and to one another. And if that doesn't work for you, or if there's something about it that's not quite right, talk to Griff. He's told me he's totally open to that kind of feedback. So try seeing if you can make that something that could be really robust. Or similarly, you could try an adult Sunday school series in the fall. 6 weeks, wouldn't have to be forever. You could wrap it up before the holiday season really starts in earnest. But that could be a time where you take advantage of some infrastructure that's already in place and see if you can really make it into something that will work for your church. So those are my recommendations. And as I've been thinking about what I can sort of say to wrap this up, I want to acknowledge that I have not given you sort of a silver bullet, like try this one thing and this will solve all of your problems. I haven't given that to you, A, because I didn't hear it from you, B, because God didn't reveal it to me, and C, because that's not how things always work, right? What I do want to tell you is that as I listened to you and as I prayed very earnestly, day in, day out, over what I was hearing and over where I sensed God was moving in your congregation, I want to encourage you that waiting is not in vain. Waiting can be really active and really fruitful. And so some of the recommendations I've given you are ways that you can be active. You have this concrete step of looking for an interim to make sure that the kids are taken care of. And as you're doing that, you can be preparing for a great job search. As I said, I think there's still some deliberation going on over whether you need one person who will handle it all or whether you need two people. Personnel committee is really praying and noodling on that one. But it doesn't have to be a time where you're just sitting on your hands and kind of lying fallow. This can be a really rich time for you. And so the verse that comes to mind that I would just want to share with you is that God has begun a good work in you. This is what Paul is saying to the church in Philippi. Same thing here. God has begun a good work in your church. It started a long time ago, and it's continuing, and God is going to carry it out to completion. I have confidence in that, and I do pray with joy for you. I know that God is